have a guitar and you don't know if you need a reset. Two things that can really tell you right off the bat. When you take a look at the line of the strings, and I'm going to use the straight edge to kind of help you, you can see that your action is going to be extremely high. At the 12th fret, when you put your scale here, you can see that we're showing a full 1/8 of an inch. And there is no way that I'm going to be able to get your action playable with the neck angle that this has. Now, one big deciding problem will be when you take your saddle out and you put a straight edge right on the neck. In a good condition, your straight line is going to go across the top of the bridge, and as you can see, I'm hitting the bridge. When I put my straight edge on there, you can see we're off quite a bit. So in order to correct this and make this guitar playable, the neck angle needs to be changed, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Another problem this guitar has, when we looked inside, and you'll see some stills, the bridge plate is really in bad shape. Now the bridge plate will be repairable, and it can be repaired a number of ways. You can dust it and put super glue in, or you can get a plug cutter. And this is a very interesting piece, and I'll show you that in operation shortly. There's another problem here, and that is the bridge is lifting. So if you take a piece of paper, it's all right if it goes under just a little bit, but here you can see this is drastic. So this is coming up. So we have to take the bridge off. We have to reset the neck. There's some fingerboard damage here, fingernail divots. The frets are shot. So this is going to be getting a refret, and this is a compression fret neck. So you'll be able to see that on the video from Blues Creek. And that's going to be going in detail. So in order to make this a playable guitar, we're going to pull the neck, we're going to take the bridge off, get this guitar ready to pull the neck. In order to get the neck off, I'm going to have to inject steam into the neck block, and in order to do that, I have to remove a fret right here. If this were a 12th fret, it would go to the 13th. This is a 14th fret, so I'm going to the 15th. And what that's going to allow me to do, that's going to open a little pocket up in the neck where I can inject steam. Now I'm going to have to drill a hole, and I got to pull the fret. So I have two different tools here. These are end nippers, and they've been ground so that they are actually a chisel point. So I hope you can see how they're chisel pointed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply heat. Martin actually does use glue in their fingerboard. Now the heat isn't so much to release the glue as it is to get the steam out of the wood, so I can pull a fret out without damaging the fretboard. There are some people, and yes, when you get skilled enough, you can do it cold, but if you haven't done too many, I do suggest heat. So you just put the soldering iron right on the fret, and I'm just gently wiggling. And my wedge cut on my tool is lifting that fret right out of the board, and you can see this process does not take long, and I have the fret out of the fretboard. I can take this, put it somewhere where you don't burn yourself, and now I have access to my neck pocket. Since I'm pulling all of the frets to refret this guitar anyway, I'm going to remove the rest of the frets on the tang here, because it really does allow me to get the heat through the fretboard into the glue joint so I can get this to come apart cleaner. So again, I'm just going to put a little heat, and I'm going to pop all of my frets up. And as you can see, it doesn't take much. That heat lets the wood release the fret very quickly. Now this is in real time, so you can see how quick this will work. And don't have to work the handle hard. Just a gentle squeeze like you're shaking hands, and all of a sudden it loosens. And you're probably saying, why didn't I take them out all the way? Well, they're hot, and if I let them drop on the finish, I'll be doing some finish repair, which I don't want to do. There's a little snuggie. I'm also in this video, there's a lot of fingerboard damage that I would need to repair. And with ebony is such a wonderful wood to repair compared to rosewood. And I'll show that shortly. As you can see, that's how easy that was. Now the next stage is I'm going to pop off my bridge. I'm going to show you the cold method. And the cold method is I have a special chisel that I have ground, a double ground so it gets in there. And the purpose of the chisel is not to cut the bridge off. What we're actually going to do is kind of stress the glue joint, and you'll see that this will lift pretty nicely. Now the trick to this is not just grab it and give it a whop. You're going to come by very gently, and we're talking light taps. Now after I go around the bridge a couple of times, you're going to hear the sound change. Now this is not the original bridge to this guitar. Somebody did repair work on it, and at some point, I don't think they didn't do a stellar job, and I'm expecting to see some damage underneath this bridge. Now I'm hitting firmly, but I'm not hitting very hard. It's just, it's like a war of wills between me and the guitar. Now the guitar, it's coming off, see? All of a sudden the glue fractures. And what I like to do at this point, I like to take a razor blade and just try to make sure I have all of the loose fibers cut off, because I don't want to lose anything if I don't have to. And here it comes. And actually I'm surprised. I was expecting to see a lot more damage, and you can see this comes off pretty clean, and actually comes off probably about as clean as a glue joint will. So now I'm ready. I can reset this back when anyway, now that the bridge is off, I can concentrate on taking the neck out. I have a pot of hot water starting to cook over here. I'm going to drill 2 holes. Now you have to keep in mind where your truss rod is. Now this is a Martin. This is the Martin technique. It works on most guitars. It works on most guitars, but not all. So the next thing you're going to see me do is drill 2 holes. Okay, the target that I'm going for is at the neck pocket. And this is a long scale neck. It doesn't really matter. This is a layout neck, but I just want to show you for demonstration. This is your 14th fret. Here's the 15th fret, and this is the one that I pulled. And we're going to drill 2 holes, and as you can see, that little gap is what I'm looking for. I can inject steam into this gap, which will release the glue, which will let the neck come out. The first thing I have to do is get the fingerboard extension off. Then I can steam the neck. So the next step will be drill the 2 holes so I can get the steam. And you noticed I said 2 holes. A lot of guys will just drill 1, I found out that by having the two holes I can work my needle back and forth and I can get the neck apart quicker, so I have less risk of damaging or weakening any other glue joint. Now, in preparation for this, this is where the fun starts. I'm going to drill two holes, and I'm going to stay off the center line so I don't hit the truss rod. And I'm going to try to stay right on top of my fret hole. So I'm right through my fret slot here and over here. Now by doing that, I've now created a way for steam to go in and come out, plus I can put steam on one side and the other. I want to try to avoid getting too much moisture inside the guitar. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tape up the guitar so that I don't have to worry about bumping it, damaging it. Tape right here alongside the fingerboard extension. Both sides. Now what this is going to do, because sometimes you will loosen binding, and I'm not really too worried about that too much, the tape's going to hold everything there. So now I want to double check that my needle fits my hole. And it does. In order to get the fingerboard extension off, I'm going to apply heat. You can either use a heating blanket, you can use a clothes iron, or you can use a heat lamp. This is my method, and this is what I'll do. I'll heat that up, the glue will release, and I'll pull this out. Okay, now I'm applying my heat on here. And I'll take a piece of wood, and I'm just going to hold this on here. And with the frets being removed, the heat will get through there pretty quickly. Probably will take about 2-3 minutes. I have a couple of different tools. You have to be careful because as the wood heats up, if you aren't careful, you can actually damage the top. So we got to get the glue loose. I'm going to work one of these tools underneath there. I'm going to hold this one underneath there once it really gets softened up, and then I can apply my steam. And it's amazing how quick these things can get hot. Now I know there's a lot of guys that like the, cardboard to protect it for heat, anything. With the light bulbs especially, you can get those little infrared lights. They work very well, but you do have to make sure you cover any area where that infrared light can hit, because it will get it hot. This method, I can control the heat very well, and I can get in there and remove things quickly. So at this point, it's just a waiting game. Okay, the heat's starting to work, so I'm gently going to work in here. And I want to be careful, because once it starts letting me in, I'm getting in a little bit here at the corner, and I don't want to force it. I mean, you got to rely on the time and the temperature to let that heat act with the glue and release it. Because we want the glue to release, we don't want to cut wood fibers. Now here you can see that we're working, and when this happens it goes pretty quick. Now the heat's still working its way through here, so I can just gently work this in, and I can feel the glue releasing. And you can see that's just going right in there. And you notice I'm kind of walking the knife back and forth. Think about, kind of my mindset is thinking of cutting the glue joint. I think that's the best way to describe it. And now, you can see I'm really back there. And now I'm going to take my putty knife, which I rounded the edge on, and I'm just going to just gently stick that back there. And that's strictly to keep this from reattaching itself. Now we can inject the steam. Now this is my steam generator. It's a pressure cooker. There's any way that you can create your own steam. I'm going to connect my hose to it. And in no way am I telling you to do it this way, because you have to figure out your own way and liability, but I actually copied this design off of Martin. Remember, these are hot. Now you can see I can work my nozzle in and out, up and down. See the steam coming out? And what I'll do at this point, now, I'm watching my neck joint to see if I have failure. And I'll just gently stress out a little bit. And be careful of steam burns. You may want to wear gloves. If you've never done this before, it might be a very good idea to wear gloves. Now you can you see the water coming out down at the bottom of the heel here? So the joint's starting to get water in it. And all I'm going to do is gently rock this back and forth. And it won't take too long. Very faithful. And now you might be able to see the moisture condensing up the whole neck block, or up the heel, and the neck is starting to wiggle. And by me doing this, I can influence where the steam's going a little bit. And we'll give that a minute or two yet, and that should be ready to come out. Now I'm gently holding this, and I'm just gently rocking back and forth. I'm not getting too forceful with it. And yes, you can use the neck pulling jigs if you want. I just like to do it this way. That way the neck comes out without damage to the dovetail. And you can see I have nice steam going. This is all nice and loose. Now once the neck will be ready to go, and I'll feel that soon, I will take my steam generator out of there because I don't want to get a face full of steam. Now you'll have a little bit of finish blushing, but that usually goes away in a day or two. It doesn't really harm anything. It also gets a lot of dirt off the guitar. And just by moving this around a little bit, I'm keeping the joint aggravated. And I can actually see I'm still a little tight down here yet. Okay. I'm just about ready to pop. Okay, now you can see where the neck is really starting to get loose. Okay, so I can pull this out. And I'm just rocking it back and forth, up and down. Back and forth, up and down, and all of a sudden, here it comes. and that's how the neck comes out. Now, while everything is hot and everything is soft, I can scrape the glue off, both the fingerboard extension and the dovetail. There. And all I'm trying to get off is the glue. I don't want to hit the wood. I just want to get the softened glue off. Just like bubble gum. Okay. I can clean the worst of that off later, because once it dries it'll be hard and I can scrape it. And here you can see how clean. In my early days I used to get a little bit quick on here, and I learned that you just have to be patient. Don't worry about it. The heat will get there, because if you try going too quick and the glue doesn't release, you can lift a lot of fibers in this here. And there was a shim used at one time on this, when they set the neck. But there we are. We now have a body and we have a neck. And the neck will be able to be reset, and you'll see that later. Next thing, I'll be pulling all of these frets, and I'll be doing repair damage control up here, and we'll see that soon. Well, thank you. Alright, I'm applying heat to my fret. You saw previously I already pulled the fretboard extension off. Whenever you have to do a reset and you can take the frets out of the lower end, it really helps because you're getting the heat applied right to the fingerboard extension, where the frets will actually kind of work as a buffer. And it takes a few seconds long, it takes a few minutes longer, but I just think that it's a lot better when they can do it with the frets out. And these frets are really seriously worn. My customer who got this, he got it at a good buy, and for the amount of money that's going to be put into the guitar for repair work, he's still ahead of the game. So, you know, just because the guitar may look like it needs something, that's where you and your tech can work together. Sometimes you can get bargains. So as you can see, the process of pulling the frets is not that hard. And one nice thing I like about this particular situation is, although there's a lot of what appears to be serious damage to the fingerboard, there's a couple of techniques we can use to fix this. Frank Ford shows an excellent little tutorial where he goes in with a razor blade and fluffs the grain and drop fills it with super glue. I've used that technique on rosewood, and I've done it on some, let's just say, less than higher end guitars. But on these, with the higher end guitar, I have a technique that I like to do here that will really put this fingerboard back into pristine shape. And as the heat gets in there, the frets release. And I'm going to have to re-plane this fingerboard because it has been worn considerably. And you'll see shortly how we repair those major divots. And I can tell you that the neck is straight. It's not warped, which is a big hand. That's a big plus. And when we get into the compression part of this, the compression fretting, I don't think it's going to be, the actual process of compression fretting is not difficult. What you want to kind of pay attention to is what's happening to the fingerboard and the neck as you are fretting it. Now, when we get to that point, we're going to see some, I'll have a pile of parallels, machinist parallels and straight edges, so I can watch what's happening. In the perfect situation, I'm going to want to have a straight edge, and from the 7th to the nut, from the 7th fret up to the nut, I'm going to want to see about a 7/1000 backbone. And then when you put the strings, apply the strings to it, that should pull the neck back into position. What I do like to do, when I get this back onto the guitar, I can actually simulate a string load, and I'll plane my frets at that time, and that way I can adjust my relief under a load where the neck actually thinks it has strings on it, and I can tweak that neck relief in very close. That is one advantage of a two-way truss rod. You can adjust that relief very easily. On these, basically when you fret it, that's the relief you got, and that's what you're going to stay with. So that's how the frets come out. The next step, you're going to see me repair some of these major divots. Now, what I'm going to do right now, so I have an idea of where I have to go on this, I do need to take the nut out. And to take the nut out, you want to be very careful. And what I like to do is just take a block of wood and just lightly tap. And there's my nut. There's a little bit of lacquer or glue in there, so I'll take my little knife here and I'm going to score along there. There we go. So now, I have an idea of what I'm shooting for. I'm just going to take a 16-inch radius block, and I just want to give this a little hit, and that's going to tell me about where I'm at and what I have to fix and where I got to concentrate on my repair. Now you can really start seeing how much fretwear was done. And it's fascinating that somebody can actually play a guitar that much to put all of them little divots in there. Now, some of these will sand out fairly easily. But right here at the 4th and the 3rd fret, they're pretty severe. So what I'm going to do, we're actually going to cut this out. I'm going to take a fingerboard that is the same scale length, and I'm going to take this little arc out, and I'm going to drop that in there. And this works. This will put this back into pristine shape. Nobody will ever know that this was repaired. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself some nice little filler blocks. Most of us that have our shops, we usually have an old fingerboard or ebony laying around. This was a fingerboard I got, and it was not usable, but I have pieces that I can make for filler. What I'm going to do, or what I did do, is I actually am running this through my thickness sander, and I'm sanding it off the back. So when I'm done, in the next frame, you're going to see all of these in single piece form. You'd say, why don't you go and saw them out? Well, you can, but by running this through my thickness sander, I'm going to have a nice flat surface that I can use and join in here. And you'll see what's going to happen there next in the magic of television. So I'll be right back. Then the last pass, when I go through the sander, now you can see I have all these nice little segments. They have the radius on there for me. All I got to do now is inlay these into where they belong. And that's going to be the next thing that you're going to get to see. I have an inlay tool. It's air operated. I have a 3/32 bit. No, it's not down cut. I have special eyes that I need to wear. And what I'm going to do, and this is the neat part, I don't know, can you see just how bad that fingerboard is? Okay? You can see that's the old surface, the dull is the new surface. And I'm going to take this area right here, which is the 4th fret. 1, 2, 3, 4, right here. I want that. And I'm going to inlay that into there. Now, so I don't lose this, what do I want to say? So I don't change the illusion of this not having been repaired. I am not going to cut through the edges. I'm only going to replace the area that it needs to be repaired. So I'm going to lay my curvature right here. I'm going to take a pencil, which God knows I have millions of and never can find. Okay. What I'm doing is I'm taking a pencil and I cut a very sharp point on here, and I can make a line. Now I know that I want to take this much off of here. That's going to cover the damaged area. Now I can go and I'll probably go right here to my radial arm saw, and I'm just going to nip that off. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now I can take my pencil and I'm going to make 2 lines, one on the inside, one on the outside. This area is going to be taken out. This will be stuck in there, and you're going to see how quick and easy you can do this repair. I'm setting my cutter that I'm going to have a little sand off area. I don't want to let so much work that I got to drive myself crazy, but I do want to make this pretty easy. I'm also going to try to avoid going right to the slot. In fact, no, I will go through this slot because I'll show you how to set this up and have it right where it needs to be. So at this point, you're going to see me grind some wood away. Okay, as I'm inlaying here, I'm doing this freehand. I've done so many of these, I'm very comfortable doing it that way. Again, you got to be aware of climb cut and route cut, which we've explained before, but basically climb cut is that you're going in the direction of the cutter. I actually use my fingernail as a kind of like a fence, so I can create my straight line on one side and I'll do it in the other. Then I can remove the field very easily. So you can see here I got a very reasonably straight line, and over here I'm going to do the other one. And that was what I wanted to bring out, just that you can use your fingernail or your thumb and it can just come back and forth in a very controlled line. So let's get the rest of this out of here. Now, you saw how I cut that area out. Now I am test fitting my piece. And I have it very, very close. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit here. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of breaking my edge and putting a little chamfer on the bottom slot, because whenever you have a male-female corner, like this would be the pocket, my piece coming down in here is going to hit a radius in this corner. It's very seldom that that'll be dead sharp. So by me breaking that little corner, that will sit flush into the bottom and tight against the side. And what I can do now is I'm just going to basically sand fit this in here. And I try to avoid worrying too much that I don't have it dead and that's perfect. I want to get it very, very close. That's not a problem. And you can see as this is going in there, I'm just about there. Now, almost in. Okay, a little bit up here yet. And it's just a little here, a little there, a little here, a little there, and there, just about in. Good. Looks good. Almost there. Alright, now I'm almost in. I've got to make one adjustment here yet. Here. And I have this kind of wedged a little bit so as it goes in, I don't have a big amount of area pushing against here because I don't want to crack the fingerboard, but yet I want my joint to be nice and snug, so I just have a little bit of a wedge that's just going to touch right here at the surface plane when I get it done. So when this goes in here, this is going in dry. Don't look too bad. Just about there. Now, how am I going to control my fret slot? Well, I have two advantages here, because number one, I am compression fretting. So I can do some things as long as I have a reasonably parallel slot. That's perfect. I can put if it's 25 thousandths, I can put a 25 thousandths. As you can now see, we have this pretty much ready to go in. It's a little proud, and that's fine. I'd rather have it a little high than a little low. Now, the next trick, you can go buy those expensive Teflon fillers, or take a wax paper roll, I'm going to put that here, and I'm going to put that down. I have two razor blades. I'm going to fold the wax paper onto the razor blade. I'm going to set this into the crack. Likewise, where did I put my other piece? There it is. Now I have my fret slots delineated. I'm checking to make sure that I'm bottomed out good, and that's pretty decent. I'm happy with that. Now comes the pièce de résistance. We dry fit. I know everything's lined up very well. What I'm going to do is, you can use super glue, you can use almost any kind of glue. This I'm going to put Titebond in. I just feel a little bit more comfortable with the Titebond. And you notice I'm putting glue on both surfaces, making sure I have a nice cover. Okay? And this goes in here. That goes on there. My two razor blades go into the slot to square this up. Now I can take this little clamp, I'll put it right in here. You can see glue coming out. That's a good sign. And this is a very good time to take a break. So you can see how quick you can do a repair. And once the glue dries, we'll be able to go in, sand the radius back on, and you're going to be able to see, you won't even know that that was ever touched. And we'll take care of the other areas shortly. Okay, the glue setup, I used a 16-inch radiusing block, started with 120, 220, and this was the repaired area. That's the non-repaired area, and as you can see, that has now been restored. We have a radius. It looks like nothing happened. Now, there are a couple other techniques that we can use down here where we have shallower, less noticeable bumps. I can take my sawdust, and you can see I'm kind of like troweling this in. I'm going to take wax paper, a razor blade, and what I'm doing here is just kind of pressing that down so that I kind of get a flush and have dust into the divots. Kind of like a joint compound deal. As far as dust up. That'll work. Now I can take thin super glue. And it won't take much. Seconds for it to start. Now I'm watching my super glue, and I'm watching it starting to thicken. Now I'll hit it with the activator, because if I hit it too soon, I'll get a foaming reaction, and I don't want that. So this guy here, I can drop fill with some dust, scrape some dust together. But here I'm going to do a different technique, similar to what we just did with the pipe bond, but I'm going to use the super glue because I don't have as much of an area to fill. Where's my little... And here, I'm not going to have to worry about hitting the fret. So I'm just going to dust this up. Right here's my area. And I'm kind of letting that soak. And it's starting to gel solid up. There we go. Now I'll take 120 grit. Now I'm pretty level, so now I'm going to go down to the 220 grit. Now what I'm looking at, I need to do a little bit more filling, and this will just be a thin coat. Down here I have a little bit of a hollow. super glue. My friend Wayne Henderson calls it holy water, and I kind of have to agree with him because it can be used for so many things, and it can be misused for many things. Alright, now, that's a lot better. This one's going to need a little touch. Alright, now I got to replace right here, 3rd fret in that area yet, and this is going to be technique number 2. Now this technique not too hard. Same thing, I'm cutting out through the center. I'm trying to cut out the part of the radius that matches where I'm working. I'm going to go to the bandsaw to cut this out. I want a reasonably straight edge. I don't want it perfectly straight because wood is seldom perfectly straight, and the irregularity of that line is going to help fool the eye that nothing was done. Okay, right there. 2 lines. Alright, I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. Just like I did on the other one. That's a smaller area that I'm repairing. And here we're going to be dropping super glue in. At this point, all I'm doing is sanding a fit. And remember, I'm kind of back cutting it a little bit. That pencil mark was just letting me know how close I am. And I'm close. Okay. Okay. Now you can see how much I'm sticking above here. I didn't have to go as deep here as I did down here. So here's a little trick for you. Put a piece of tape on your wood. Now you can go to a power sander, and instead of putting your fingers and grinding your fingers down, you have a tape that will give you a handle. If you want to follow me to my sander, now, I'm not going to worry too much about holding these slots open with the razor blade and wax paper like I did before. I will do it, but I'm not as critical on this because I am going to have to recut this fret slot anyway. I know it's going to be a little tight. Next step will be have the wax paper on the top. I'm not too much worried about here. I'm going to wick in the super glue on the side. This is kind of like soldering pipe. You can actually see the glue go down. Hold that down with my thumb and hope that I don't become attached to this. Okay, it reacted. All right. Now I'm going to do the 120. And I'm going to take the dust as this comes up, and I have a little divot right here I want to touch. And these little things that I'm using, they're called palette knives, artist knives. This is what they call them, man. And you'll find that these things can become very handy in the shop. I'm just buttering the dust into the crack with all the wear mark. Now you can also, if you have a good sharp chisel, you can also use a chisel and cut this down with a chisel. I don't have much to do. Sandpaper will work just fine. And I'm letting the dust come up into the area where I just fixed. Because I would rather do 2-3 thin coats than a couple of thick coats. Okay, now that I'm getting near all of the work that I want to do, I want to sand over the entire fretboard. Almost done. Now I go to a finer grit. Now down here where I've drilled my 2 holes, while my fret wire should indeed cover the holes, I'm going to just do a little trick here to show you. A little wax paper. We're going to let some of the dust come down here. Here I have a little line, and I want to fill that. And that can actually be to your advantage. You don't want it to be perfect, but you want it to look like wood. You don't want it to look like it's body coat. Because once we put the stain on here and buff it and polish it, this will all hide. And now before and after. Get rid of the dust. But now you can see that fretboard is ready to become a guitar again. This was the major repair area. This was the super glue area. You can see the filled areas with the super glue and dust. I'm not really all too concerned about that. Once the screws are on there, I have a little bit of buffing and some more sanding to do, but for the demonstration you get to see exactly what we got to do. And that's how you can take a major divoted fingerboard and turn it into a usable piece. The method that you're going to see here is going to be for basically a pre-1980, I think 88 Martin guitar, before they had adjustable truss rods. Because we're going to have to do a compression refret on this guitar, so you'll be able to see that in this detailed video. Also, there's going to be some restorative work on the ebony fingerboard because of play wear. So prior to the adjustable truss rod, you had to adjust your neck relief by how you compression the frets. Now your fret slot is a given width, and when your fret tang goes in there, it will spread it. And this is how we controlled the back bow of the neck in the old days. Nowadays we just hammer in a fret, tweak it front, tweak it back, we can put it where we want. This is back in the old days, and there's a lot of people that do believe that the old fretting style like this made for a better sounding guitar. My ears aren't that good, but I guess if you believe it, you're going to hear it. So hopefully you'll find this video interesting and informative. We now have the fingerboard and it is ready to be fretted. I actually started fretting the lower end, and most of you know how to do fret work. This is compression fretting, and you can see there is a square tube truss rod. Now that's a non-adjustable truss rod per se, in that I have to manipulate the fret tangs to get the certain amount of back bow that I'm looking for. Now this is a machinist parallel. It is accurate to like a half a micro inch. I have a 2/1000 shim. If I'm within 2/1000s, I think that's pretty good for what we're doing right now. 2/1000s in the final fret dress isn't going to be a lot. And if I set this at an angle, that fretboard, as you can see, we're dead straight. So I know that I have a straight neck. I am going to actually want to get about an 8/1000 back bow. That's what this feeler gauge will tell me. So what I will do, I've already taken a feeler gauge and I've gone through my slots. I know I'm right around the 21/1000 area. So I have some 20.5, and they have the barbs. I have some 21 fret wire. I have 18.5. I have 22.5. I have a couple of different fret wires available. Now I'm not just going to go right up the neck and start doing things. I'm actually going to go and come up like every other fret just to see what I have happening to the neck. So since I know I'm right around 22 maybe, I'm going to grab a 20.5 tang with some barb, and I'm going to put two or three of these in. I'm going to put one there, up here, and I want to put one right at the nut. Well, I shouldn't say the nut. I want to be at the first fret. The amount of fall off where I want to measure will be from the 7th fret up to the 1st. Now, you can use hide glue, you can use white glue, don't use Gorilla Glue, you can use super glue. I do use Titebond. It's not necessarily gluing the fret, but it's working as a lubricant and a filler. I want to have my fret slot reasonably filled with glue. I want to have a roll of paper towels handy, and I have my water. So I kind of work this into the groove. I'm going to take some of this off. And when I fret, I want to be over something reasonably solid, because we all know when these things start bouncing, you don't get the fret to seat the way you want to. Now some people do like to press them in. I'm a hammer guy only because that's a technique I learned and I'm comfortable with it. And what I'm doing is I'm checking that the bottom part of my tang is fitting down onto the fretboard. Now when I take my nipper, and I don't know if you can see it, but you can see I got a little glue coming out here. Okay, and I have glue coming out here, so I have glue filling the slot. And I nip, and I nip. I just want to make sure that my fret head, whatever you want to call it, is on line with the plane of my fretboard. I trued that up very accurately. I have this. I use my straight edge, so I know my fretboard has been prepped and ready for frets. So here we go. I'm going to put this one in right about 6. Well, this is 5 actually. And I'm just working that in with my finger. Kind of like finger paint when we were kids in school. I'll start right on the corner. My fretting hammer of choice is actually an antique cobbler's chasing hammer. And it also works good for bar frets because I have a flat peen. I can stretch my bar fret if I need to. And that doesn't look too bad. I'm happy with that. And I'm going to come down here. And we've got 3, go down about 3. And I'll do this one. Now I can see if I'm getting any movement just with them 3 frets. I can put this right on here. At those 2 points I'm riding a fret. And right now I am clear by 2/1000ths at least. So I did get a little bit of a back bump, which is fine. What I'm going to do next, since this is working pretty nicely, I'm going to put one here and I'm going to put one there. And if you take notice, I'm kind of working very symmetrical. I don't want my neck to be straight and then fall off. I do want a nice, graceful arch. Getting the neck relief is so important for a good setup, and this is how you got to do it. Down here, where you're right over the meat, really doesn't matter too much what I'm going to put there. It doesn't spring too much, but you can see how my extension is coming down just a little bit because I did put almost a dead nuts tang to the slot, so I am getting the barbs to bite. That is almost important in getting these frets in there. You want that barb to stick her in there. So here I'm going to put one there, I'll put one here, and I'll put that one there. So I'm going to start here, and again I'm going to keep my eye on what's happening. If I'm off a little bit, if I'm shooting for 7 and I get 10, I can dress that out. If I get 4, I may actually set the neck with that and then make adjustments when I dress the frets. Now, for those that want to super glue a fret, I'll show you how you can super glue one in. I'll actually put the super glue right on the fret. And it doesn't take much. And if you put too much on, you can make a rather funky mess. And I want to wipe that off right away. Alright, that one there needs a tap right there. Now let's see what we have. I can actually see, now here we probably have, that's 2000s, and I'm dragging. I'm just dragging as I go in here. And that one's free and clear, so that's good. I'm going to continue using that fret tag. It's not often you can use the same one all the way through the procedure. Getting these to start, Clarence Van Horn out at Martin showed me that. Just tap right on the corner and come across. And I like to nip them off right away because it just saves myself from a little bit of bloodshed. I have that little razor saw. Sometimes you need to clear out your slot, and this little razor saw does a nice job of that for me. I can just put it in there and I can get all my dust and dirt out. And this is the basic fretting procedure. Now, since I have, things seem to be working for me and not against me. And this was actually the first refret on this guitar. So I don't have to deal with a lot of messed up fret slots. It's going to be a little bit easier, because sometimes when you get into like the second or third refret, it can be a disaster depending who did it. Tap at the corner. That one, I'm saving that one for last if I need to give it a little bit more of a kick. But I think we have a nice bow started with this set of frets. too much bounce. And you can see that little drop of glue coming out. And I'm really getting a nice soft part. It's good, good, good. Three more to go, and then we have a fretted neck. And I have a quick tip for us. I had a piece of fret wire. And the last one. Alrighty. I do have one to go again, right here. Now, this is a very critical area, and it's also a dangerous area of the neck because it's right near the overhang. So I take a little block and I just catch it in the corner. I don't want to bang on something that isn't very well supported. It's a great way to crack and split an old piece of wood. And we really don't want to do that. So, now you can see all of this gunky stuff on here. I'm going to show you a nice little trick on getting this stuff off. I want to rub all of this old glue off. If you put a little bit of white vinegar in your water, it really helps to get the glue off. And what I'm doing is I'm working from about the center. I'm not going right across this way because then you put stuff underneath your frets. And I'll take this upstairs. I do have a buffing machine, and what I will do is I will put this on a buffer and polish everything up. But I'm going to now get an idea about what is our relief in this neck. like I said, I'm shooting for about 8/1000 back bow, give or take a little. Okay, now I have, this is an 8/1000 feeler gauge. You may not be able to see it, but there's a little 8 on there. And when I put my straight edge on here, I'm back at the 12th fret. I'm just going to kind of hold it down here, and I can take my 8/1000 and that's just barely going through there. I'll put it in the flat side, and that's, I'm so close to that 8. I'm going to go down here. I probably want to see 2/1000 come through about 2 or 3 frets down. Not bad. And that's good. So I do have a very slight back bow in this neck. Now you probably can't see it with your on the camera, but trust me, there is just a slight back bow. Now once I get this back onto the guitar neck and everything is set, I can really dial that in very, very precisely, and we'll show you that in a future video. So right now this is ready to get reset back onto the neck, or onto the guitar. What I'm doing now, I have it's a bastard file. It's a smooth milling, it's a mill file. Smooth second cut, which means I can go back and forth. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just basically getting my fret ends dressed off. Less chance to puncture myself. And once you get them all level, then you can see where you can go back and forth nice. So there, that's a rough in for the compression fret. I have a little bit of cleaning of the glue to get. I have a little bit of touch-up to do on the fret ends, but I'm not worried about that. Now I can take a look at the guitar body and resetting the neck. I also have to do some work on this. Inside the body here, the bridge plate is actually in pretty bad shape. And I'm going to show you a couple different ways to repair a worn bridge plate. Now, we all heard about the super glue and dust. I can show you that. I'm going to show you another method that I kind of like. It's a glorified plug and glue. I know there are a number of people who will like to just drill through it and put a plug in, and that's fine also. I kind of like this technique a little bit better because the plug is straight through. This will be more of a spherical plug, and it is gives me a little bit more gluing surface. It is also a reversible repair, so down the road I can take out the plugs, put in new one. It wouldn't be a difficult repair. Now this is the Stuart McDonald setup, and I'm actually doing this kind of backwards, but you're going to be able to see the mechanics of it. You go into your drill, you go into your bridge plate. This will actually come up through the top. There is a depth stop on here. This is not just random. There's definitely a depth stop here. So you can come up through your damaged area, and you can see I don't put a plug that totally goes through the bridge plate. There's a second part to this set, and this will cut these plugs right here. And they're spherical. Now what I like about this method is I am now given a larger glue surface area. I also have it set so it doesn't go through the bridge plate, but it takes out all the damaged area. This piece will get glued into here, and I could use super glue, I can use white glue, I can use anything. And when I'm done, and we'll use super glue for the sake of the demonstration because it's a lot. If I were doing this in the guitar, which I will be, I'll come up through and I have a ultra high molecular weight nylon caul so I don't glue it to the bridge plate. And I'll put them in, and you can adjust with the piece of plug cutter. You can actually make them that they're pretty much right dead flush. So this would be clamped up from the bottom. You can take your super glue and your activator, and you can just drop down through the sound hole. You can put in a little activator, drop it down through, use wood, you can use almost anything you want to. And then once that cures, which it has, I can take a sanding block, sanding stick, and you can sand this out. And most of us, we have little sanding blocks that we use to get inside the guitar real easy. But now you can see you have a nice wide little plug. It's very secure and it works. The other method is where you'll actually get a little plug, drill it, and it'll go all the way through. It works also. And you can also do the old trusty super glue and dust. Now when I do super glue and dust, I usually put a piece of tape through the sound hole so I can plug it. I'm going to use a little darker dust so you can see the contrast better. And I also kind of like to want to tamp it down. So when I go to do this, naturally we probably have a bridge on here. And then I'll take a little nail head or something and I literally tamp this down. A little bit of super glue. Some more dust. Some more tamping. And I'll continue to do that until this is filled. Now, what I'll do is naturally we're usually doing this through a bridge, so I'm conscious of how deep I go. I don't want to go all the way to the top of the bridge, but I definitely want to go past the top, and then I can re-drill and come back down through it. So it's just a matter of kind of basically making a paste, fill it up, tamp it down, fill it up, tamp it down, fill it up, tamp it down. And once you think that you have it full to your liking, you can go to lunch, or for us, in the sake of the time constraint, I'll hit this with a little activator. And you can sand that flush. And you can see it plugs out pretty well. This would be drilled through the top, so that's going to be insignificant. I'm going to sand this down just to give you a clear look. And as you can see, both methods work. And that's hard. That's pretty hard. And it's a way of saving your bridge plate. Use the technique that you like. Doesn't really matter. I will admit, on a cheap Takamine, I'll use that. In the other methods, I generally do like the larger plug, only because it gives me a larger surface area of repair. Just my opinion. So that's the way I like to do it. What I'm doing here, I'm just being sure that I have all of the old glue out of this joint. Now this is high glue, so the nice thing about the high glue is when I re-high glue this back in, high glue is re-amalgamable. It's a mouthful. It can basically glue to itself. A lot of the other modern woods do not give you that luxury. But I still want to get things nice and clean. I would like to be down to bare wood. That's just, I think you're better off. There was a shim in here, which is not uncommon. And when I put the neck in, you can see that the tang of the extension does have a little bit of a downturn because of the compression fretting. That's not out of the norm. Also, I want to take a look and see how straight my plane is from the fingerboard, and the top is still reasonably flat, so we don't have a lot of caving in. We already did check the body for strength and structural issues, and everything seems to be just fine. So at this point, we're going to shim the neck so that we're up, and then I can bring this back down and reset this neck. Now I do like to use a clamp. I watch the guys out at Martin with a hammer, and they do it every day. Alright, that doesn't look bad. Now having that clamp back in, you can see the fingerboard went reasonably straight. And what I can take a look now is I want to see what the plane of the frets are to my bridge. So I'll take a straight edge. I can lay this on the fretboard, and I can see that when I put my bridge on here, I'm hitting it. I would actually like to see my bridge scoot underneath these frets without even touching it. So we know that we have to pull the neck this way. I got to take off of the heel and take it up through so we can change the neck angle just a little bit to accommodate the geometry change. So let's get some shims. I put two 10,000 shims in the neck block. They're just to get me roughed in. I'm going to take a little bit off of the heel. And the heel here is kind of worked in, so I'm not working the whole plane of the heel. There's like a little divot out. There's just a small, in fact you can see there's like maybe a 1/16 of an inch along here. And that was the way that they had done it originally. This guitar never had a reset before. So right now what I'm doing is just kind of manipulating this so I can drop that heel into the body and get the neck to come up. So let's see what this little bit did. And it doesn't take a lot, but we do have to get that back into where it belongs. Now by putting two 10,000 shims on here, this going to make the neck stay out of the body a good bit, really. But what I'm doing, I can see what my neck angle will be. So from this point to that point, I want to see a little bit of change in the elevation. It's about 3/8, and that's about 3/8. So I do need to get this to come up. I'd like to see about a 1/16th and maybe an 1/8 of an inch difference. I just want to get this to roll. Once I get it to move, I can see where we're going to be at. And I'm not going to be manipulating a lot on the dovetail, the actual dovetail tenon yet. I'm not working this area. I'm still working this area because I want to get that to lean this way. So by getting it to go that way, you can see you have to take off down at the heel. Now I do have a chisel here, and I'll use a chisel in a minute. But right now, I like using my little sanding stick because I feel I can control the amount I'm pulling off better. And then I can use the chisel to clean up everything and make it nice and crisp. So let's get the body out of here. Let's get the body out of the way. Yeah, kind of hiding everything. So I'll put that out of the way. And notice I took the strap pin out of the heel so that that thing isn't flopping all over. And I'm trying to imagine, if I can, 4 or 5 little separations. And I'm working from here to here, then I'm going from here to here, then I'm going from here to here. So I'm just doing this. I'm concentrating and rolling this a little bit. Then I'm coming up to about here. Now I'm coming up to about here. And at no point do I go all the way up to the fretboard. I'm going to do the same thing over here. A little bit more. A little bit more. And I'm trying to take off the same from both sides. I don't want to disturb my center line. Now I do have to replace the bridge on this guitar, so I do have the luxury of making the bridge to where the neck's going to fall, but I do want to get that thing centered the best that I can. Alright, so let's put this in and try another test fit. I am going to take one of the shims out. I don't think I need the full 10. I'm looking at the mating surface of my heel to the bottom. Right, now I'm looking here. And I have a little bit of gap at the heel. That's telling me that I have now created some movement. I have that clamp reasonably snug. Now I want to see where what my dovetail's doing. And because we've worked the lower part, you can see the upper part's getting, the neck is not perfect, it's not tight. So I'm going to put some chalk into here so I can see what the angle relationships are with the tenon and the mortise. We'll chalk up the neck block. Okay, I'm going to chalk up the shim. I do know some people use carbon paper. Use whatever you feel comfortable using. Now I'll put this in. Now when I go to put this in, I'm going to concentrate on keeping the neck against the body reasonably well, because I want the mating surfaces to touch the chalk, and I don't want to influence the chalk onto the block by my hand. I can see that I'm snug here and snug here, so I know that I have the neck block into the joint. I'm going to snug this up pretty good. that being tight on there and tight on there, I can see if what I did made anything move. And indeed it has. Just barely touching the bridge. So we got a little bit more to take off, but you can see it doesn't take a heck of a lot. The joint looks reasonably well, but I'm going to take a little more off, just a touch. And I can also now see that the chalk, you can see the chalk is pretty well evenly distributed here, which is a good sign. That means that the joint integrity is very, very nice, very precise. Think about pinch joint, because that's what we're doing. We want the lower end, to be down here in the block, pulling everything together. Now with the 10,000 shim in there, and if this fits perfect and I'm well centered, I'll probably just go in with one shim. They did originally have just one. I'm gently holding this against the body. I'm checking to see how my joint is mating. And we'll see in a second once we tighten this up. I'm also taking a look at the fingerboard extension. And I can feel that there is a little play in the neck block, which I expect, since we've opened this down, opened this part of the heel up, we're allowing that V to go into the block more, so this is going to be loose at the heel, and the top is going to be tight, and that's what's happening. So I have to take off of the top so that we can get tight at the bottom. It's kind of funny, it's the opposite. If it's tight at the top, you got a relief at the bottom. And you can see I have chalk up here, not down here. So I'm just going to take a little bit off. Let's take a look what this does now. Okay, I'm looking at my mating surface here, and I see I have a little bit of gunk going on. There's a lot going on right here from the finish over time, kind of balling up. So I'm going to just hollow a little bit here. There's a high spot here, and I'm going to just take my chisel, gently work this down. I don't need much. I'm going to put a little bit of scribe sanding here now. And what I'll do is I'll take a strip of fine sandpaper, grit side up. I put this in here, and I'm just gently going to pull this through. That helps to take the high spots off. A little more, not much, just a little more. 320 grit here because I don't want to be too aggressive. Now the shim is out, but I can hold that tight against my body. And you can see how nice that line is. And over here, this line is reasonably nice. I have some dust issues there, but that looks pretty clean. I'm going to do a little bit of scribe sanding again. Alright, we got the neck set. We have a couple videos on setting necks already, so you understand your process of neck setting. This is one of Martin's heavier bridges. I always like to get the heavier ones because I can make them smaller. And we're at 425 thousandths. So when I put my straight edge on my neck onto here, we're just skimming. And I'll want to take this down from the 420. I'd like to get it down to about 380. I'm a big fan of a 3/8 inch neck. And what I'll do is I'll put a little piece of tape here and I can go to my belt sander and I can make this fit to where I need it to be. And I'll be right back. Okay, now I sized my bridge. The bridge and the saddle combination right now is right about 1/2 inch. And when I like to put right on the first fret, right to the saddle, and I can see that right here at the 12th fret, I'm showing about 1/8 inch. And on the treble side, I'm showing about a 1/16. So this might be the setup that I'm going to want to use. I'm showing a solid 1/8 inch of saddle. So I may take this down just a little bit more. I'd like to have about 150 thousandths to 180 thousandths of saddle when I'm done. So I only have to take about 20-30 thousandths of saddle off of here. So at this point, I'm ready to put the neck back on. And then I want to show you how to set you know how to dress your frets. I got to put a nut on here. But to simulate the amount of weight, I will take two pieces of, I have two of these, and these can simulate the string tension, the force of the string tension on the neck. And then I can dress my neck straight using this setup. Now this neck isn't glued in yet, so I'm going to be gluing in the neck, but that's how I will dress my frets. And that is how you do a compression fretting of a neck. Work slow, kind of take 3 or 4 areas of even spacing, try to see what your neck is doing, and then once you have it all set up and done, as you can see, I have a nice, very straight neck. If you can look down the fingerboard, the fingerboard was nice and prepped, and you can see I have not dressed those frets. But if you get your fretboard well prepped, that's going to make the dressing very, very easy. The next step will be gluing the neck on, and I will be using a hot hide glue for this, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. My straight edge, and I can take my bridge, and I'm just barely touching my straight edge. So that has me pretty happy with where I'm at. That bridge will be going onto here. I do have some finish work that I have to do, but I hope you can see how compression fretting works. That's the only difference between that and the truss rod, is you're making your adjustments with the frets. One nice thing about this neck, it's a lot stiffer than the modern day truss rod. I really believe that these solid truss rods made for a very good, stiff and stable neck. And I hope that you've learned something from me. After this point, it's just basic setup and repair. And again, thank you. From my shop to yours, I'm John Hall, Moose Creek Guitars. Bye.